All right, well, let's proceed because everybody is so nice to join us on first or second day of spring. I can't recall because I've been shut in, but it feels better. And you could be outside playing wiffle ball right now, but you chose to sit in and join us. And we appreciate that greatly. So, this is, I'm not even going to venture to guess or calculate, but I think maybe this is our 24th knowledge series or 22nd.
I think it's the
And
15th anniversary of the knowledge series.
I've learned that I can't handicap what subjects would resonate with people and motivate them to join us. We had a long-term care seminar and how to manage probate, which I thought I would need to order dry crackers for, but it was lovely and everybody was our highest attendance. And here we are talking about how to generate additional income at home. And I thought we'd be overrun with a bunch of unemployed 5-year out college kids, 5-year out college kids, and yet not. But before I get into that, I'm going to sneak in a segue, which is to just say for any of you who are joining us and use us to manage investment assets for you, things are going much, much better. And investors seem to be concentrating on the fundamental reasons why they use share ownership, buying stock to grow their assets. And that fundamental story is that they grow earnings, and the human tragedy in Ukraine is unnerving and hard to forget. But ultimately, quality companies grow their earnings and you grow your net worth as a result of owning them. And so we're getting back to that, at least for the time being. And why am I bringing this up? Well, A, because it's true, and you should have confidence that your March statements will look better than February. But also, it's just a reminder that it's easy to get caught up in just looking at the asset side of your net worth as a way to figure out whether or not you're going to live well in retirement and whether you've done all that you can to get your money managers and investment advisors to do as well as they can. But a lot of people forget that your lifetime income, your salary and wages and dividends and gifts, all those things that go into income over the 35, 40 years that you're in your workforce is the largest asset. And we don't talk about it enough. There are financial advisors that specialize in helping clients prepare to be appealing enough to get a raise or to upgrade their job position. And I think that's where value is added. In our case, and for tonight, just so we don't wax on at the 30,000 foot level too long, we have built by our tech and research guru, Steve Worth, who's here in the Marsha Brady tile, third from the left. He has helped us develop a retirement income illustrator that's very robust. And we do all we can to illustrate the what ifs, the forward look of your retirement income. And it's all predicated on two things. It's predicated on the rate of return on your capital, but it's also predicated on how much you put into your buckets. And again, we spend a lot of time trying to grow the buckets. We don't spend a lot of time talking about how you can get more money in. So tonight, we're introducing this subject. We're hoping that as we save it to the reading room or the archives of our Riverside website, that you would feel comfortable sending it to anybody, that that is having a hard time or just wants to generate more income. The document is not meant to solve a step-by-step instruction. for every one of our ideas. And we're not covering all our ideas because so many of them are kind of self-evident. For example, you see we don't have babysitting in there because we kind of know about that all the way back to the 50s. And so we've kind of just focused on 12 specific home income generating ideas to do a little deeper dive. And again, we're not giving you all the instructions. After we're done, or I'll tell you now that Steve has also prepared a quick list, if you will, of web-based web addresses that you can go to visit different resources for executing your own side or home office or extra career hobby to generate income. So we'll make that available to you. All right. So number one, cover creative strategies to generate additional household income, and nothing more important than starting off with the why. So why put in the effort? Well, some of this is redundant now, but I'll move through it quickly. We, in our position, and we want to help in our financial planning efforts as much as we can. We spend a disproportionate, I should change that. We spend a lot of time, it's not disproportionate, it's righteous, managing the assets you do have, but your lifetime income may be the largest asset of all. And we short shift that. So we want to spend some time tonight to help you figure out how you may be able to augment that income. And the ideas that we're discussing tonight, the 12 that I cherry picked, by the way, most of which, a majority of these 12 come from actual experiences of my own and of clients. And then the other are picked up from reading. I've been reading on this subject really since the 2008 financial crisis, when so many bankers were unemployed and all of a sudden we had a big boom in self-employed business, which is kind of a good thing. But the common element to all these is that these remarks really are relevant to people who are unemployed. It's relevant to people who are underemployed. An example of underemployed might be someone who does a part-time para teacher thing at a middle school or a library assistant, where maybe they're there for 15 hours and yes, they have to do things at home, but they might have another 10 to 12 hours a week that could be put to a home business. And as I've read and stayed current with all these businesses since the 08 financial crisis, it's so fascinating. I really feel that this big universe of self-employment is untapped by so many people. And oftentimes the services and products that you engage in fill a really specific niche that are left behind by institutional sized businesses. And there's great money to be harvested given the right approach. What are the benefits? Well, the list is endless. Because we're financial advisors, I tried to just pick out some of the central financial gains, vitality and youthfulness are one or two, but right now we're just sticking with, hey, if you can pick up what would be an example of a target for self-employed income? Well, how about just making a backdoor Roth contribution every year for 12 years? So the maximum for someone at my age is 7,000. So you do that for 10 years and you get a nice 6-7% return, and that 70,000 grows to 150, 170, 100,000 of which is tax exempt. What could that do in your life? That could pay out a $23,000 distribution for 10 subsequent years to travel aggressively and see the world before you get back to a more static lifestyle. It could be something, the income that you generate can help to reduce your debt service now, home equity loan that you might have, student loans you're carrying for your children, so that when you do get to retirement, you have improved free cash flow. So that just goes back to, it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep. And if you can knock $900 a month off your budget from retiring debt based on the $11,600 a year you generate from self-employment, then wow, your retirement just going to have a lot more wiggle room, a lot more space. I hinted at this already. Build a war chest of cash to pay for protection against healthcare expenses, which for most people is really the biggest risk of longevity in your money during retirement, or elevated healthcare costs. And you can use the self-employed income to help that, or to use it to pay premiums for long-term care coverage, which we discussed so well last month. A lot of people know how to live an austere life in retirement. We've met some of these people, and they're lovely and have a great life, just living on experiential warmth and not having to travel to Paris every year. And they know how to spend less. But if they can increase their income and protect against the ravages of some unexpected level of healthcare spending, all the better. Of course, the obvious one, you can use that extra self-employed income to cover cost of just additional amenities in your life. You can target your vacation money. You can decide to go ahead and join that racket club, or just go out to dinner more often and have a more out of the house lifestyle. And the last issue is that if you do well with self-employed income and you build something you can rely on, then you can carry that into retirement. It doesn't have to stop when your Social Security kicks in or any other predetermined date. If you're doing some consulting, you can consult as long as you have breath and take it at your own pace, and just keep your income a little bit more generous. So those are some of the benefits. I imagine you didn't need me to tell you these, but good to cover it anyway. All right, 12 ideas. And I'll try to keep it brief enough so that if anybody has a personal testimony or wants to ask any other questions about it, we can certainly do that. So number one, teach classes locally. And you'll see number two is teach classes in a different modality. Why locally? Well, because it's just better and easier to pull off. I just threw in a little dynamic, one class a week, 6 people each class, $60 each session for 6 sessions. So it's $360 a week for 6 weeks in a row. Then you take a break and you rinse and repeat. Well, what are we talking about? Cooking classes. Obviously, you can't force it. You can't be a chef when you're not. So I can't do a cooking class. But here's the example. You see this little sister-in-law. That's my personal reminder. So the president of one of our partner companies had family out to his wife's 60th birthday party. And my wife and I attended in the Catskills. And we sat at a big dinner table one night, and I was across from my sister-in-law, and her husband works with us, one of our advisors. And she's a phenomenal cook, just born out of working with her grandmother and some famous chef in Philly, and working with her own mother and learning how it works. And she was talking about some dish that she prepares. I forget the name of it. I never heard of it. Everybody else had. Something that you make and it sits there for 6 weeks and then you come back and enjoy it. I can't remember what it was, but so people were asking her about her recipe, and people trapped her for 2 hours. They were so fascinated by her understanding of materials and cooking technique. And I'm sitting there going, this woman has to have a cooking class. Right there at that moment, she could have enlisted at least 10 people, men and women, who would come to her home and take this cooking class and pay $60. Absolutely. Who knows what that turns into, a YouTube show. And by the way, if her kitchen isn't big enough, she's a member of a congregational church. She could probably convince them to use their kitchen. Light carpentry. There's a friend of ours, a fellow who I've known for 40 some odd years. He was my RA in college. And all this time, I had no idea. I mean, he was a musician and a great logistics consultant, but it turns out the guy is a great carpenter, and I never knew it. And now when I go visit, I see his shop. I'm like, where did you learn how to do that? And it's one of these things that I've long felt I should at least know how to build a birdhouse, much less a piece of furniture. But I don't. And I would easily, I'm not going to drive as far as his location, but I would easily pay $60 for 6 sessions to learn how to do light carpentry and where I can get the tools. And I just think many, many people would be fascinated by the same. Nutrition and nutrition walks, like taking people to the supermarket and walking down the aisles and teaching about the nutrition tables and how it works. We have a friend who teaches high school and junior high school hockey players how to power skate. And it's year round because they just use an indoor rink. Power skating. It's like, who knew? And that's a thing for hockey players. If you want to be competitive, if you want to make your varsity team, if you want to go to a PG or to prep school, go to college, go to, the AHL, you got to know how to power skate. He just does that. It's not general hockey. Gardening, of course, that's self-evident. But the fact is, a couple of years ago, when we just killed everything we bought at a high price at our local place, it just died. We said, we need a gardener, and we hired this person. And within a month, people he had like 10 customers, and then he got ill, and now everybody's jumping to replace their gardener. Get paid to exercise. We have a client who's a young man, in his 50s, not typically the age at which someone transforms themselves into an Olympian, but this fella did with his son. And it's just beautiful. He's changed his life. He's in great shape, medically, spiritually. And I'm like, he could start a class where he taught people how it works, muscle sustainability, nutrition, how to work out, how to break it down into pieces, how to control your heart, all these things. We have a client who teaches other people how to tie fly fishing flies. And I learned that the people who do this, it is their biggest passion. They could sit for hours with a big magnifying glass and tools to tie flies, and this is a passion. And I looked around, and there are a couple not discreet, organic tie flying shops in the area, and they're just deluged with people who love this. So teaching classes locally, you just do it word of mouth. As I say here, you focus on skills that people want to develop and would pay for a personalized experience rather than just going to something at their town hall or some virtual class online, which is less bonding, less tactile. It's a great word of mouth marketing. Social media marketing works for this sleeve of self-employment. And if you want, if it's going well, then 5 years later, you could have a network of these kind of things and be the head of an organization. So teaching classes locally. Second, teaching classes online. That's a little bit more sterile, but it's a big business. And there are recommendations that we can give you on Steve's punch list. So what I've learned is that beginners who teach classes online can make about $10 to $20 an hour. Not bad if you do 5 hours a week and you do it all year. Yeah, that'll get you a Roth IRA plus some, Roth IRA and Christmas money every year. The more experienced teachers, so there's a couple that I read about that's making over $1 million a year with these classes. And I wrote down 2 examples. One is LinkedIn learning instructor. You can train to become a LinkedIn learning instructor. And there's a web portal called teachable.com where you can join the online staff and just apply and develop your expertise for whatever subjects. And here, of course, you're not doing the local word of mouth, build this great following thing. You're catering to the millions of people who want to, learn about carpentry, but they want to do it from Vancouver and not next door, and they're just willing to do it online. So if you have a particular skill, if you teach French, if you know how to cook, if you have a particular art skill and it's perfect for an online learning company, you can be part of their staff and pick up revenue. And you can take a look at teachable.com as an example. Dave, does this feel like NASCAR speeding through, or is the tempo okay?
Beautiful tempo.
Oh, sure. All right, here's a wide open number 3. It's really number 3 through 12, but just good old fashioned concierge services. And I use my own terminology, bundled or unbundled. And as you can see, I recommended that unbundled is better because it's more focused, it's streamlined, it'll resonate right away because it's niche. But what is bundled? Well, Steve and Dave and the other people at Riverside Financial Group and Carlson, they're all wonderful. I feel like we're doing a good job, but our business is growing fast and we are up to our gills in tasks. We just don't have more time. And I'm, as the owner of Riverside Financial Group, I'm having trouble managing all facets of my life while I devote myself willingly to the business. And I'm just one of the millions of people who have seen huge business growth, and they've got personal issues to deal with, and they've got business issues that aren't related to the day-to-day putting out fires approach. And I've seen advertisements in our local paper for successful business owners looking for an executive assistant, which is just someone at their side whose main skills are trustworthiness, technical abilities, spreadsheets, Microsoft Word, blah, 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 cloud, organizational skills, being on time, being dependable. And you don't need to have gone to Brown to have those attributes. And I think somebody who fits that role and can control their own client base, 1 client, 2 clients at a time tops. You could set up a nice website or just do it in the old-fashioned way and advertise it locally. There's no question that you would get calls. Right now, we're going to be interviewing for a paraplanner, hopefully soon at Bryant College. But in lieu of that, if for any reason that didn't work out, I could see myself paying an amount that's greater than somebody's Roth IRA times 2 to have someone just diffuse some of the tasks that I have to deal with every week. And time is the most precious commodity. Another bundled example would be, I think this is actual commercial term, rent to daughter or rent to son, but I've read testimonials about people who set up this business to just be there for a widow who's at an adult daycare or at what's the word for a full service long-term care facility, or a dad, a widower, or just someone who needs company and wants to go fly fishing once in a while and hit the library and play chess. And so you can do that and just be a catch-all friend, ally, support service person for an older woman or an older man. Technically, I guess it could be both. And technically, I suppose it could be a youth if it was somebody who, was not able to mainstream in school or something like that. In this bundled space, there are a host of kind of Mr. Fix-It, general do-it-all people that you can sign up online. And one of them is TaskRabbit. And you just go on there, you give it a little whirl, you'll see, you log in, you set up a profile, and then you can assign yourself to different types of tasks. So if somebody wants somebody to come and fix their porch and build a little elevator, then you could opt to have that job come your way. But the unbundled is more fascinating to me. And part of this is a personal experience. Again, my wife works in the school district and does a lot of extra after school. I'm pinned down in a good way from, 8 to 8. And there are a lot of things that we can't handle. So how about a personal chef just doing your own prepared food for delivery? In my town of Guilford, we have that already. We have a number of institutions that do that, but I don't like any of it. I don't. And I would rather find someone like my sister-in-law who can take 8 o'clock to noon while her children are in school and make, lemon chicken and rice and orzo and some kind of beans and package it into 10 delivery baskets and get it out with some high school kid to take it to my door. Another unbundled idea that's similar would be personal food shopping and delivery. So what would that be? Well, I would love it if I could count on somebody who knew how to go and find the fresh fish, the fresh lobster, to know where the best butchers are, where to get organic farm to table type stuff, and just do that for me rather than, subscribing to Peapod or something where you're just getting national brand names off a shelf. Another example would be shredding and recycling. Being there to deal with recycling, not just the things that you can leave on your curb, but shredding documents, take it to the right place, get it done, or other home decluttering services, kind of like a more humble version of the California closets kind of thing. I just for goof, like, well, if you wanted to start a business called the Shaker Life, where there's not a single thing out of place, there's not a superfluous pair of glasses or a remote sitting on a table, it's just beautifully clean and stripped down, and that could be your shredding and recycling business. So this concierge thing, we're not talking about licensing, we're not talking about errors and emissions insurance or liability coverage, or how do you bill for it, how do you price it. Those are relatively easy decisions. The key is you do it with conviction and you market the heck out of it. And once you get a loyal client base, you'll be making $18,000, $20,000 a year, no problem, with this kind of concierge idea. Number 3. Number 4, this is very intriguing. And I talked to my son about it, who spent many years in New York City and considers it his mission to know every nook and cranny of Manhattan. So then I followed up by reading around, and yes, people do this, hosting tours of your own city in which you live, or one that you don't live in, but you know it real well, or other go-to destinations. So, my son spends a half a lifetime in Manhattan, knows the right restaurants. Cab, Uber versus what's that thing with all the graffiti underground, and the subway. Best time to go to Times Square, best place to see the sunset on the Hudson. And there's a variety of places where you can advertise that. But another example would be someone who lives in Denver and is a great skier and knows, Vail Resorts and Breckenridge like the back of their hands. And you get these first time lay people, kind of naive New Englanders who want to go ski Colorado and don't know how to do it. And they see this advertisement for someone who could be their tour guide and help them through that experience, or a particular sailing destination. My wife and I know Block Island, Fisher Sound, all these things. We can absolutely take people on a tour of those things and charge a commensurate amount to build, $6,000 to $8,000 over 6 months of the year easily. And you could do it as a website. You could build out a website to do it, and that'll be seen by more people if you boost your website and use the different what do they call this, Steve? The optimizers, the search engine SEOs to get the name out. And you can do these tours, just walking bike tours. You can have meeting places, such as Grand Central Station or whatever, Central Park, as kind of a cool way to kick these things off. It's very aspirational. If someone were to pitch this to me right now, it would be a long distance between sitting here and doing my daily work and thinking about how I could assemble things to be a good tour guide. But I'm also just living in the burbs, and a lot of people know the places they know intimately, and I'm not one of those people. But number 5, this I just find would have to be one of the biggest joys. Restore and flip furniture or other items as well. Become a tag sale hound. Everybody does it, but people who have skills can do it with earnest and really do it right. And you see this little indication, sunfish. Well, I have a friend who, if for those that don't know, Sunfish is one of the original mass-produced sailboats. I've already had one. There are thousands of these sitting on the sides of people's garage, just getting rusted out, and yet they're kind of retro. So a lot of people have Sunfish because of an estate settlement. Their parents had it or their grandparents had it up at Squam Lake. So I have a friend who bought a Sunfish for $150. It was a nuisance takeaway thing. The family just like, yep, $150, it's yours if you just take it away. And he redid the hull, redid the top side, bleached the sails, and had them recolored, redid the dagger board and the center and the rudder, and sold it for $850. Okay, so it's just one example, but someone could do that 10 times a year. There's your Christmas money, there's your vacation money, there's your Roth IRA. Small boats, lawn equipment, bicycles, home furnishing. Steve here, who wouldn't confess to it, but Steve can rebuild a computer, he can rebuild a motorcycle, he can rebuild a carburetor, he can rebuild anything. And someone who does that with an artistic flair, who can make something look better, make something look vintage. And then you get to go around the neighborhood and go to tag sales and estate sales and buy things on the cheap that people devalue, fix it up, sell it on eBay. You can sell it on LinkedIn Marketplace. You can develop your own personal website and call it something cool, something that competes with some of these things you see on TV, like Treasure Hunter, and just spread the word through social media and town to have people check in with your own little marketplace to see what jewels you have to flip. And lo and behold, yes, there are a multitude of web-based tools for this. One of them is Flea Market Flipper. And unsurprisingly, at least to the degree that you can believe these testimonials, people are making some serious money doing this. And I would have to think that it would be a joy. My brother-in-law, come on. My brother, middle brother, is an industrial designer, both corporate and moonlighting, and his wife is an illustrator, an artist, and they met their first day as a freshman at the Rhode Island School of Design. And they met with their very first assignment, which is have their professor sent them to a junkyard and made them walk around, find something, and rebuild it. That's how they met. So you can find love too while you're doing this. I guess that's the bonus. Okay. Number 6. I just threw this in because it's the most passive, but it's kind of a cool thing, and a lot of people don't know about it. Just if you have a lot of cash, peer-to-peer lending. Peer-to-peer lending is, so peer-to-peer lenders, the two I list here, Lending Club and Prosper. So people who don't feel that they have the credit quality or don't choose to go to a conventional bank or lender or credit card vendor can go to these peer-to-peer lenders. So 1,000 people a day are sending in requests to borrow money, and they develop a credit profile, and they are offered debt to solve whatever they have, medical emergencies, pay off extortionist debt elsewhere, whatever it is, and they get interest rate offers based on their financial profile. And the money that they borrow comes from hundreds of thousands of people who are putting up their money to make those loans. And so as a peer lender, I can go in and say, all right, I'm going to do 20,000 and I want to get like a 10% interest rate on my 20,000 for 3 years. So you go through all of the loan requests and look at their credit profile and their explanation for why they want it. You say, well, you know, I want to put half of the money in high level credit with these 10 who seem very substantial and earnest. And I get like a 6% interest rate and it's safe. But then I'm going to give $50 to fund that loan for someone who just came out of the military and has no credit. And that's a 16%er. And this woman who had medical bills and lost her job, but has some help somewhere, and that'll be a 13%er. And you patch together and diversify your credit risk, and you can target like a blended return of 10%. All the payments less a small fee come back to you. And you know that the default risk is going to be minimal if you spread it around in the right way. It's a fascinating concept. It's not, you know, for everybody, and you've got to have a fair amount of cash on hand. But think of it this way: you have $100,000 in bonds right now. They're probably paying 2%, and they're going down in value because of higher interest rates. Well, these kind of, I don't know what that is. These kind of loans don't devalue. They're just straight notes that you're lending to people who really need help. And so if you had, you know, $20,000 that you wanted to put to peer-to-peer lending instead of keeping it in a bank CD or a treasury bond, you know, getting 8% a year more than you would get in a commercial bank, that could be a fair, you know, amount of money. So $1,600 a year. All right. Blogging. The next two, blogging and client events producer. This comes from our collective Riverside Financial Group experience and knowing the experiences of other financial professionals as investment advisors, insurance agents, 401k managers, financial planners, you name it, CPAs. Everybody is dying for content. Here we are having a knowledge series. This is our best idea, content. But we have a newsletter. We have a website we have to maintain. And we want to join the throngs of people that add value to their clients by giving them information. But if you're putting out fires every day in a good way, you don't have the time to be an author. So you could be a blogger serving the needs of small businesses to provide content. You get to know 3 clients. They've got to provide content to their website monthly and to a quarterly newsletter. So you have about 16 pieces you have to write for 2 different people, and you charge X amount per delivery. You keep it local. You're not advertising yourself as a professional blogger to try to reach the National Geographic audience and the NPR audience. You're doing it for to talk to the 8 or 10 businesses you know in your area that would love to outsource this kind of content without going to some pre-canned service. For our website, for our newsletters, we all do it. We do it all organically because we want it to be real and authentic. But we could easily just subscribe to a service and get the same information that I see on 20 financial advisor websites. So blogging, I think, is a no-brainer. Anybody who's a good writer can build up a small, manageable blogging client list. You can do it as traditional media that you send to them to post to their own sources, or you can help clients develop a video blog and YouTube presence. There's a financial advisor up in Maine who he just sits in his mudroom with his dog interrupting all the time and writes in poor handwriting notes on a whiteboard and talks about different financial planning subjects. And now he's up to like some gazillion views. He's very charming in his old down east way. He's got this huge following, and now he has advertisers on his site. When you go on his YouTube things right now, you have to listen to an ad, and they're paying him. for it. So I will note here that this kind of blogging service is often found with larger regional media companies. We've visited with some media companies and they'll do that, but but you can compete just as a good writer and author, a creative thinker, with those big shops that'll ask someone to pay $15,000 a year retainer for all marketing services, and people don't want to pay that bill. They just need someone to make them competitive with their content. Same with client events. So ever since COVID knocked a lot of clients backward, there's been a huge emphasis on client events. There's a company called White Glove that does this for financial advisors, but they're so static. Wine tasting, been there. Coffee brewing or beer brewing, been there. It needs fresh thought. And so we have fresh thought. We're having a book club reading a Ray Dalio book, and it's a big book. It kind of throws us back to Econ 101 in college. I was scared that there were no pictures in it, and yet we have this great response. But I would love to outsource that to someone who's just creative, can take people to I don't know, broom ball in go-karts up in northern Connecticut or something for a bonding event, or some great niche restaurant where you can learn from an Italian chef, and you can charge for client events or to build and sell client events. Number 9, becoming a sales rep to independent artists, craftsmen, and designers. I call it, your personal Etsy, because Etsy is a thing now. So individual craftsmen, they don't necessarily need an independent sales rep. They could just go on Etsy, but Etsy is a mega tool. It's passive. You sit out there and you throw your stuff and you wait for the proverbial phone to ring. It's like, okay, well, I kind of want to make money, not wait around and not make money. So that brother of mine is the head of design, industrial design for Melissa and Doug Toys, and his wife is a New York Times bestseller children's book author illustrator with a book series called Pinkalicious. Now she has a cartoon on PBS, and yet they moonlight stuff. They make little mirrors, cast iron mirrors with Canadian geese feet. They make a clock called Fly on the Wall or something with little, they make so many cool things. And originally when they got started, they had an independent sales rep. I've been to artisan furniture designers up in Canaan, Connecticut, who profess that they're dying to be exposed to other markets. And you can learn how to set yourself up to be a sales rep to move their products and services more quickly than just throwing it on Etsy. And you can be a sales rep to a watercolor artist, to writers, not necessarily novelists, but people who are writing stuff for content and want to get it out. You can be a manager, sales rep for a musician to get them gigs and take a percentage. For craftsmen, for people who build small furniture and just did it as a hobby in a way to cool down, but now all of a sudden they're selling 6 rocking chairs a year, and other industrial designers who just make stuff. My brother's now in Sharper Image and some of these things, so he's kind of got a professional backer. But early on, they used a company called Hank's Craft, which just is a sales rep business to these independent artists. I put down 4Ocean Ambassador because it's just kind of fun. It's not really a serious thing, but 4Ocean is that company where those young bucks surfers are going around the world, mostly in the Pacific, cleaning up the oceans. And they have all these products, wristbands, hats, backpacks that come from recycled plastics that come out of the ocean. And you can sign up to be an ambassador, and you can sell these things as an awesome way to help the environment, sell it to eco-friendly people who want to clean up the waterways. And you can do it through social media and directly, and you can do it with knowing that people will love it. It's not like selling magazine subscriptions when you couldn't get a job and over the summer in high school. People love this and they want to support it. And you get like $2.60 for every wristband and $4 for every hat or whatever. And that's sort of a quirky example of being a sales rep to an independent entity. Number 10, this is the 10 and number 10 is Captain Obvious. Everybody knows this, but it's helpful to be reminded about it. Renting unused space. So Airbnb for an open room, hopefully not right next to yours. You know, if you have a east wing and a west wing with a whole house and kitchen in between, a separate stairwell, maybe even a separate exit, you can rent an Airbnb and get $800 a month. If you have an in-law apartment or cottage, that's a no-brainer. Most people are doing that. Backyard storage. That when we put our boat away or when our daughter came back from college, we couldn't find an open storage. U-Haul, whatever, they're all taken. So you can just go to Home Depot and buy a couple sheds and put them around the back perimeter of your yard and charge people for winter storage. If you have a big lawn or a side lawn and a boat owner only has a quarter of acre, you can charge to have them bring their boat under shrink wrap on their trailer to keep it there. You could buy a mini house. There are now manufacturers, Home Depot, some other companies that are manufacturing turnkey mini houses that you can put somewhere on your property and have that be an actual attractive Airbnb rental. So it would take you a season to make your money back. But if you did it for the next 10 years, yeah, you could make $10,000 a year renting your mini house if you live in a location that people want to attend. Right now, I'm trying to help clients get, did I just say that? My son's getting married in Mystic, Connecticut. We're trying to find extra space and we're looking at Airbnb and it's toast, nothing, zip. And obviously Mystic is a place that people want to go. Plus it's near the Coast Guard Academy, Conn College, Mitchell College, and all these graduations. And, you know, if you had a nice house in Mystic, but you didn't want to vacate to do Airbnb, you could spend $6,000, put this mini house that has a functioning kitchen and all this on your property. And yeah, one good summer, you'd cover your costs. Number 11 is sourcing property. So right now we're in the midst of a couple of our clients trying to buy a house in Fairfield County or buying houses in Fairfield County. We have clients who are looking to do 1031 exchanges of property that they sold and put it into a commercial real estate, and there's no inventory. So you can hold yourself out as someone who's essentially a scout to go find properties, commercial or residential, that can accelerate somebody's knowledge of the inventory rather than just scoring through Sotheby's.com, looking at the same thing everybody else is looking at, and charge a fee for that sourcing and help possible buyers arrange for home inspectors, valuation people, appraisal people. So you can turn that into a property sourcing business. And last but not least, this I just love because I'm going through it with clients now. Estate, that's not really the right term, but helping people move all of the stuff they own when an estate is closing. And I've been through this, our team has been through this 3 or 4 times over the last year and maybe 7 or 8 times over the last 2. And I'm kind of I dealt with my parents when they moved from their longtime residence where they had stuff in every cupboard and moved into a continuum care place, which is about a quarter of the size. And they had all this lifetime of accumulation, china, books, sculptures, wooden objects, furniture that no one wanted. And that has to be moved somewhere, particularly the books. So you can turn that all over to an estate sale company and get pennies to the dollar Or you could hold yourself out as somebody who can manage that for people who just, it's the most frightening thing to tackle. And you could set it up by either running for them, for the homeowner who's leaving, you can, or for the family that's selling mom's house after she passes, to set up lawn sales, to make connections with estate sales, to liquidate at the best price silver and china, and to go and work with book appraisers for any books that have any value, take care of the logistics, rent the vans, get it to places, goodwill, deliver it to family members. And you can work not only on a flat fee, but you can work on a commission schedule for anything that's sold, which would be incremental, but you do this often enough along with your flat rate, that would be a good thing. Love my parents, but if something had happened to them before they disposed of all their property in their own way, I easily would have taken $10,000, $12,000 of the overall estate as an expense to give to an estate liquidator manager person to handle all of this and be in communication with me every step of the long way, because all my siblings have a day job. So I don't know who would take care of it. And then part of that is you got to figure out how to develop the expertise. So I think we're ending with something that's a little bit more morose, but managing estate dissolution, whatever the best term is, Dave, help me out. Estate
Yep.
settlement, movement of property, I think is a tremendous niche. And if you're a nurturing person, compassionate person, the family probably would prefer that rather than when my parents did move, their realtor offered to do that. So realtors are getting in the game. They're like, yeah, I'll sell your house. I'll also run all the estate sales, and whatever's left, I'll just get it sold and I'll move it to consignment shops and stay with it until it's done. And then they take a fee. Kind of a nice bonus. All right. 12 ideas to generate home income. And I hope that, I don't expect any of these to be a surprise, but if we look at it at a fresh perspective or with a little passion, maybe something resonates with you or somebody that you can pass this on. And we're also posting this as a blog to our website as well. So questions, comments, personal testimonials, love to hear it. If not, and when we're done with that, enjoy NCAA women's basketball.